Welcome back to The Explainer, focused learners. Today we're diving into Jan Maro's book, The Boy from Madeira, and man, we are going to completely deconstruct the ultimate self-construction project. We're going to break down the relentless rise, the deeply unglamorous mechanics, and literally the sheer engineered willpower of a guy whose career has somehow defied biology and honestly, our expectations for almost 3 decades. All right, let's just dive right into this.
So, was Cristiano Ronaldo born a genius? I mean, it's the question we all kind of assume we already know the answer to, right? We see the leaping headers, the blinding speed, those physics-defying free kicks, and we immediately think, well, obviously, he was just born with it. The gift was right there in the cradle. But what if that comforting assumption is actually completely wrong?
Just consider this quote for a second. Everything that made Ronaldo extraordinary was added later, on purpose. Let that sink in. It completely flips our long-held assumptions upside down. It instantly reframes this whole narrative we've been fed about natural-born athletic prodigies.
And that brings us to the core argument we're digging into today. See, the comforting lie we like to tell ourselves is that greatness is innate. We say, oh, they were just born that way. And because we weren't, well, we're totally excused from reaching our own potential. But the uncomfortable truth, the actual reality of Cristiano Ronaldo, is that greatness is manufactured. It's the result of relentless, tedious choices and rigorous engineering over a quarter of a century.
Phase 1, the blueprint, a boy from Madeira. Let's take it all the way back to his origins on a steep, volcanic rock out in the Atlantic to look at his raw, unpolished starting materials. When he showed up at Sporting Lisbon all by himself at just 12 years old, well, it wasn't exactly glamorous. We're talking about a skinny kid with basically zero upper body strength. He had a really weak left foot. He was so fiercely competitive and emotional that his teammates literally called him a crybaby. On top of that, he was mocked mercilessly for his thick Madeiran accent, and he was dealing with some seriously bone-crushing homesickness. But here's the kicker. Rather than letting all that vulnerability break him, he used the pain, the loneliness, and the mockery as his absolute earliest, most potent fuel.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. Origins are not destiny, but they are leverage. If you can properly channel the hunger of having nothing, it will consistently outlast the comfort of having everything. He didn't just survive the academy, he went on the attack. He took control of what being mocked meant. To him, it didn't mean he didn't belong. It meant he had to make himself utterly impossible to dismiss. Phase 2. Building the chassis, from Sporting to Manchester United.
His developmental years and that massive move to Sir Alex Ferguson's Manchester United, that was an era of intense, deliberate physical and technical engineering. And actually, here's a crazy fact that almost always gets left out of the highlight reels. At just 15, a racing heart condition nearly ended his career before it even started. He had to have a cardiac intervention to fix a racing rhythm. The profound irony here is that the exact same organ that almost ended him ended up becoming his meticulously maintained cardiovascular engine. Instead of scaling back out of fear, he leaned right in. He decided his body was a machine and he was going to master it.
And this is the exact playbook he used to transform himself from this flashy, kind of inconsistent show pony in his early United days into a lethal, automated goal-scoring weapon. Step 1. Identify the weakness, like that weak left foot or a lack of an end product. Step 2, drill relentlessly. And step 3, automate the skill. He didn't just practice until he got it right. He drilled it until the movement entirely bypassed his conscious mind and lived purely in his body, until it looked like pure instinct. He ruthlessly stripped away his dazzling stepovers and forced everything through one brutal filter. Does this end in a goal?
Which brings us to this massive lesson from his first Ballon d'Or win at age 23, make your peak your floor. While most players hit the absolute summit of world football and then, spend the rest of their careers just trying to defend that peak, Ronaldo treated it like base camp. He used his biggest breakthroughs as his new baselines instead of final destinations.
Phase 3. The furnace, Real Madrid and the rivalry. Stepping into his Galactico era, which was a time of just extreme pressure and a world record transfer fee, Ronaldo preemptively orchestrated this brilliant tactical evolution. As his explosive pace naturally started to fade, he migrated from being the dazzling, crowd-entertaining winger to just the machine. He actively reduced the distance between himself and the goal, trading those long, winding dribbles for relentless positioning, pure volume, and ruthless conversion. Honestly, he was reinventing his game before anyone even forced him to.
And man, what a furnace Real Madrid was, largely because of the guy across the divide. A great rival is an asset, not a threat. Sharing a decade with Lionel Messi didn't shrink Ronaldo's confidence. It stretched his output to unprecedented historical heights.
Having the world's only other best player constantly pushing the ceiling up meant Ronaldo literally never had a chance to coast. That rivalry, it was the perfect, permanent external engine.
And this fed directly into his European dominance. Big moments reward those who rehearse for them. We so often think of clutch performances as this mystical gift from the football gods. But for Ronaldo, being clutch, like leading Madrid to 3 consecutive Champions League titles, was just the compound interest of deliberately seeking out pressure his entire life. Those massive nights didn't paralyze him, because he had spent 20 years making big nights feel completely normal.
Phase 4. The machine never stops. Defying biology.
When we look at his later years, across Juventus, the turbulent Manchester return, and his move to Saudi Arabia, his individual performance proves that engineered systems just outlast natural gifts. Over 950 goals. I mean, that is sheer absurdity. As we track his career past his late 30s and deep into his 40s, he climbed past 950 official career goals, pushing toward a mythical 1,000. That is simply not a normal biological timetable.
And then consider this staggering metric, 24. He scored goals in 24 consecutive calendar years. Really think about what that actually means for a second. Empires have risen and fallen in that span, entire generations of players have come and gone, yet the machine just kept finding the back of the net, year after year without a single gap.
So how did he do it?
Well, by leaning entirely on an incredibly unglamorous, tedious daily infrastructure. We're talking an obsessive diet completely free of casual indulgences. Sleep wasn't just rest, it was treated as a critical training input. His time was structured heavily around recovery. He had a relentless daily gym maintenance routine. Basically, he treated his body as the primary project, not an afterthought. This is the boring daily grind that actually protected his global brand and his physical machine well into his late 30s and 40s.
The absolute core takeaway from his Saudi Pro League title, which he won at age 41, is simply this. What you build outlasts what you are given. Natural gifts, they have strict expiry dates. Biology is notoriously unforgiving. But a deliberately constructed, obsessively maintained system that can outlast almost anything the world throws at it.
Phase 5. The final output. Captain of Portugal.
If we examine his legacy with the national team, we see this incredible transition from a solo star into a standard-setting leader. 6 World Cups, 2006 to 2026. He's a single human thread running through 3 distinct decades of football history. From the young winger at his first World Cup, to the veteran captain surviving a major drought, hitting peak output, dealing with a really painful benching in 2022, and then defying absolutely everyone, arriving at a 6th dance in 2026.
Because the final form of personal excellence is collective elevation. Do you remember the 2016 Euro final? He was injured early on, carried off in tears. But even though he was stranded on the sidelines, the relentless standard he had set for over a decade ultimately lifted Portugal to their very first major trophy. He became a living benchmark that just made a whole group better.
Which leaves us with one final, truly provocative question for you. How much further can you go? If the distance between an ordinary life and an extraordinary one isn't innate talent, but simply the refusal to accept the size of your given gift, well, what limits are you currently accepting? I want you to take Ronaldo's engineered legacy as your ultimate proof of concept. The comfort of what you're given is an illusion. The power of what you build is real. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep pushing your limits, and I will see you next time.